Hello everyone, my name is Derek Pacheco and I am currently a second year in the Master of Science in Higher Education program here at Florida State University.
Hello, prospective students. My name is Diamond Newsome and I'm a first year in the Master's program for Higher Education.
So I'm Connor Dizor. I went to Louisiana State University for undergraduate and got my degree in religious studies. Then I worked in higher education for 2 years as an assistant res life coordinator at the University of Texas at Dallas to get some work experience before starting my graduate school experience. And then I came to Florida State University for my Master's of Science in Higher Education, and I'm in my second year of that program.
My assistantship is in university housing as the assistant coordinator for recruitment and training, and I went to undergrad at Berry College in Northwest Georgia.
I attended Florida State University also for my undergraduate career, and I currently serve as the graduate assistant for the Garnet and Gold Scholar Society.
So I had heard about FSU's higher education program a lot through undergrad. I have a lot of people in my life at LSU who are part of the LifeNet, so they went to FSU for their graduate school program, and I just heard that FSU was one of the best. If you were looking at higher ed programs, you had to look at FSU's program. And then whenever I went to UT Dallas, my supervisor, she did her graduate school experience at Florida State. And so just hearing about the program, hearing their experiences, really led me to look at Florida State. I had to consider it. And the more I looked into the program, I fell in love with the aspect that the program really does put an emphasis on social justice. They really try to educate us to be educators and social justice educators and work with students of a variety of backgrounds and prepares us to be the best student affairs professionals that we can be. That and the emphasis on practical experience. So in the program, we have 2 internship classes, a practicum experience, an assistantship is required. So the emphasis on the practical experiences and relating that to your coursework really did sell me on the program.
The biggest deciding factor for me choosing FSU was probably visiting days. I was unsure until I got here that this is where I wanted to be, but once I was here, I met some of the people who would now be in my cohort, and I realized that all of the students accepted to the program got an assistantship. I knew that this was the place for me.
So for me, the biggest deciding factor as to why I decided to stay at Florida State for my graduate career was because I fell in love with the student affairs professionals that I interacted with that came here to Florida State. So I decided, why am I gonna go somewhere else when I can learn how I want to become as a student affairs professional right here by staying here at Florida State University.
Although I've only been here for a couple months because of my assistantship and only been in school for a total of 3 weeks, what I've gathered is that graduate school and this program specifically is a lot of reading. So I definitely had to learn how to read all over again, but it's also a good balance between work and school, which I love. I work 20 hours for my assistantship and I have 3 courses, but it's definitely a great balance.
So for me, being a master's student in the higher education program, it's very interesting to see. So before, when we were in person, my day would usually consist of going into the Career Center, which is where my assistantship is housed. And then from there, we would either review resumes, cover letters, and other documents on desk. And then I would go and advise students for the Garnet and Gold Scholar Society to make sure they're meeting their program requirements. This semester, it is a little bit differently with our virtual format. Part of being at the Career Center is that we also have the opportunity to serve as a teaching assistant for a course. So I'm currently serving in that capacity now. So being able to also teach online while also advise students online is a very interesting and unique aspect of my assistantship that I get to pursue. So my days kind of look a little bit different depending on the days. We do drop-in advising when we're usually in person, and now we're doing virtual appointments. So students will have more accessibility to us as the Garnet and Gold Scholar advisors to help them throughout that whole process. And then normally after that, we usually have class. So sometimes our classes are at 3:35, sometimes they're at 6:25 or 6:30 at night. So it just kind of depends on the day and when we're scheduled for courses. Lately, we have had classes in the mornings. One of the electives that I'm taking this semester is in the mornings on Wednesday mornings. So it just depends on the day. But being a master's student at FSU gives you that opportunity to pick your flexibility, which is something that I definitely like. As some students have electives on Monday nights, I have an elective on Wednesday morning. Other students may pick different paths and choose different destinations that they want to pursue within the higher education realm.
So being a master's student is definitely different than undergrad. It was a little bit of a transition. Like I mentioned, I was out of school for 2 years before coming back to be a student. So that was definitely a bit of a transition, getting back used to being in classes and studying and doing readings. And I will say, in graduate school, your days just look very different. So similar to undergrad, no one day is the same as the next. Things can definitely be a little chaotic between going to work and then jumping into a classroom and doing class for 3 hours and then maybe going to an event that night. So definitely being organized and staying on top of your schedule is going to be important. But you really do kind of get into the swing of things within the first month or two. So I remember feeling a little bit overwhelmed at first, getting back into classes, keeping up with schoolwork, doing all the readings for class. But you find your schedule, you find those times in your day in between work to really kind of figure out your class schedule, your work schedule, how they can relate to each other. So if you're doing a project or a paper for class, can it be related to something you're doing for work? And so that way you can pair the two together. But just being able to stay organized, be on top of your schedule, that's going to be super helpful whenever you are navigating the day-to-day life of a grad student.
So if there's one piece of advice that I would give to incoming students or students in our program is to not fall into imposter syndrome. I know imposter syndrome is something that we all deal with, but we just all have to be reminded that we were all selected and admitted to enter this program based on what we've done and what we can contribute to the field of higher education. So just make sure that although there are going to be times where you may want to compare yourself to other people, just realize that the accolades that you bring to this program and to the field as a whole are super important, and that to hone in on those skills and make sure you also hone in on other skills that you may discover along your path throughout higher education. But most importantly, just be you.
If I could leave you with one piece of advice, it would be to get and to stay involved. I know that you're probably seniors and you're already involved in your certain areas, but branch out. If you're not involved in housing, in orientation, in student activities, any of those things, try something new before you get here. You won't regret it.
So one piece of advice I'll give you if you're coming to Florida State for grad school is really invest in the Tallahassee area as a whole. So whenever I got here, I knew that I wanted to get involved with something outside of work and outside of school, and ended up finding a community marching band that I was able to be a part of. I had played music in high school and had kind of gotten out of it, so it was a great way to just get back involved with music, something that I really enjoyed, as well as just meeting people outside of FSU in the Tallahassee community. There's also so much to do in this city. It's very outdoorsy, if you like that. There's also a lot of really good restaurants and food to go and enjoy. As well, you're really close to a lot of other major cities. You're about 2 to 3 hours away from Jacksonville, Orlando, Atlanta. So really enjoy the area that you're in because it's a fun place to be.